In 1891 in Indiana, a state with no coastline, there were several sightings of a strange-looking mermaid-like creature along the Ohio River. Eyewitnesses stated that they saw two creatures in the water feeding on fish and mussels. They kind of looked human, but they did have webbed hands and feet, sharp claws, fins, pointed ears, and sharp teeth. One newspaper wrote, "The beast is about 5 feet in length. Its general color is yellowish. The body between the four legs resembles that of a human being. Back of the hind legs, it tapers to a point. The extremities resembles hands that are webbed and furnished with sharp claws. It is devoid of hair. Its ears are sharp-pointed and stand up like those of a dog." One of the eyewitnesses, a captain from the Civil War, claimed that one was a male and one was a female, and that they were very aggressive. Another newspaper wrote that they looked like large lizards with human features. When partly submerged in the waters of the Ohio River, they look like human beings. Of what species of animals they are, no one knows. It is impossible to get close enough to judge correctly. Now, the newspapers were calling them mud mermaids, and I'm not sure how many eyewitnesses there were, but there must have been a lot, as this was a huge story at the time. But after a couple of weeks, the sightings just stopped, and they were never seen again. And even though Indiana has no coastline, it is believed that maybe these creatures swam into a river from the ocean and ended up in Indiana, which could be possible, but that would be a very long journey. Another monster encounter in the Ohio River happened in 1955. One warm summer day, Miss Johnson was in the water cooling off when a claw-like hand pulled her beneath the water, and a friend of hers who was lying on a raft at the time heard her scream out for help, and she saw that something was in fact trying to pull her under the water. At one point, Miss Johnson was able to kick herself free, but she was grabbed again, and after an epic battle for survival, Miss Johnson eventually was able to escape with her life. But she was badly injured and went straight to the hospital, and while the doctor was treating her injuries, he noticed that she had a green handprint on her leg, and this green handprint stain lasted for a couple of days. Now, Miss Johnson and her friend never really saw what did this, but they believed that whatever this was not human. And not too long after this terrifying encounter, an investigator, Terry Colvin, went to go talk with Miss Johnson. And Miss Johnson told him something that he would never forget. She said that right after the incident, she was visited by an individual who claimed to be a colonel from the Air Force, and they talked for a while. Then after she told him all the details, he told her never to talk about this encounter ever again, making some believe that Miss Johnson was not talking to a colonel from the Air Force, but to the Men in Black. Now, on this exact day in Kentucky, not too far away from where Miss Johnson was attacked, one of the most famous alien encounters in American history happened, and it's known as the Hopkinsville Goblins. And many wonder if Miss Johnson was attacked by one of these creatures, and maybe this is why she got a visit from the Men in Black. Then we have the Mill Race Monster. On November 1st, 1974, a group of young girls reported seeing a very large green hairy monster at about 3 p.m. at the Mill Race Park in Indiana. And this creature was just staring at them as it stood between two trees. And the girls, scared out of their minds, ran away as fast as they could, and they told the authorities. And of course the police at this time thought that they were crazy, or maybe somebody was playing a prank on them. But later that very evening, at around 11 p.m., two other women decided to stop here to eat their fast food that they had just bought, and to chat a little. And while they were eating, they saw something very large come out from the woods. One of them stated that this thing must have been at least 7 feet tall. It was way taller than a man. Then this creature walked over to the car and started banging on their windshield, and these two women were scared to death. The driver could not even drive away because her leg was shaking so badly. All they could do was watch in complete terror. One of the girls stated that this monster looked green and that there was a lot of slime on its face. They also saw fangs as it was trying to bite through the windshield. They thought that they were going to die. But thankfully the driver finally stopped shaking enough and they were able to drive away. And they went straight to the police station, and the police, they didn't believe them either, but there was no denying the damage that was done to their car. Now somehow the press found out about these two sightings, and they wrote an article about these two separate encounters that happened on the very same day. And after this article was released, more reports started to come in. On November 9th, two city workers believed that they saw the monster. At the time it was about 200 feet away, and one of them decided to pursue it. And as he was getting closer, the creature took off. It ran away as fast as a deer. Then it disappeared back into the woods. Now after this third sighting, hunters from near and far came to Mill Creek in hopes of capturing or killing the monster. And one thing I have noticed is every time I cover a mass sighting of a large, unknown animal, a little bit of mass hysteria sets in, and people come from all over in hopes of seeing it or killing it. Now eventually the sightings of the Mill Creek Monster died down, but still to this day people wonder, what the heck was it? Some think that it was just a guy in a suit, but for the eyewitnesses, especially the two women in the car, they believed that it was something unknown, and it wasn't a Bigfoot. It was more similar to that of the Lizard Man, some sort of large humanoid reptilian creature. Another monster sighting happened in 1898 by a farmer. One day a man, Oscar Folk, claimed that he saw a huge snapping turtle in a lake close to his farm. Then in 1948, 50 years later, two fishermen also claimed to have seen a huge turtle. These fishermen believed that it must have weighed at least 500 pounds. Then a couple of days later, there was another sighting by a Gale Harris, the man who owned the lake, and he stated that he was going to capture it. And over time there were more sightings. Some even claimed that its shell was as big as a roof of a car. At one point they even drained the lake, but nobody was ever able to get proof or capture this huge turtle. Now a normal snapping turtle only weighs about 23 pounds, so this couldn't have been what they saw, unless of course it was some sort of freak of nature. But after 1948, no one ever saw this turtle again. It just vanished. One of the strangest monster sightings happened in 1891 in Crawfordsville. One day, two ice delivery men saw something flying in the skies that scared them to death. They described it as some sort of flying monster, an atmospherical beast that was not from Earth, or at least they'd never seen anything like it before. Then not too long after the sighting, a minister and his wife were outside walking when they heard some sort of wheezing noise above them, and when they looked up, they saw a horrible sight, some sort of flying monster with no tail or head, and it was huge, at least 15 to 20 feet long, and they believed that whatever this was in a great deal of pain. Other eyewitnesses described this creature as some sort of flying eel. Some claimed that it didn't have a head, while others stated that it did have a head with one huge red eye in the middle. Now almost everyone who saw this flying creature believed that it was in a lot of pain. And what is interesting about this case is that there were a lot of sightings, but eventually they just stopped. And still to this day people wonder, what could this creature possibly have been? There's also a lot of sightings of huge snakes. One case happened in 1899 just west of Oxford, Indiana. At least a dozen eyewitnesses claimed that they saw a huge snake-like creature in a cemetery. But this wasn't a normal snake, as it had fiery red eyes with horns on top of its head. Then we have sightings of a lake monster. In 1827, workers building a corn mill claimed to have seen a 30-foot-long monster swimming in the water. Then about 11 years later, there was another sighting, but these eyewitnesses believed that it was not 30 feet long, but 60 feet long. They also stated that it looked like a huge snake, but it had the head of a horse and was covered with large yellow spots. Now the Native Americans who live in this region also believe that this lake is home to a monster, but they call it a water demon. And in the past they wouldn't even fish here, as this lake and water demon was sacred to them. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.